Hello everyone. Very good afternoon to everyone. This is Kritika from Medical Learning Hub. We welcome you to the fifth webinar session of the Catholic Health Association of India. And the topic for today's webinar is COVID-19 preparedness, a CHAI, SDFI, Tata Trust and CMC initiative. Our panelists for today's webinar are Father Matthew. Sir is the Director General of the CHAI Academy. Dr. Sitaram, Sir is the medical head at Tata Trust with more than 30 years of experience in healthcare. Dr. Pradeep Ninan. Sir is a pediatrician and has worked with at CMC Vellore and various rural mission hospitals. Sister Dr. Beena. Ma'am is a consultant gynecologist, deputy director at Holy Family Hospital, and also the president of the Sister Doctor Forum of India. Warm welcome to everyone in the webinar. Before starting the webinar, I would like to give a few instructions. All the participants will be on mute. If you have any questions, please write it in the Q&A section and any comments in the chat section. Our speakers will answer all the questions in the end. And also I would request everyone to wait for 5 minutes after the webinar for the poll questions to be answered. Now I would hand over to Father Matthew for moving forward. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Kritika. As usual, you have introduced very well to the group. You are now very familiar with our webinars. Thank you. Today I'm taking multiple roles. So I think right now I take the role of welcoming everyone. So a formal welcome to all of you. It's very, very encouraging to see so many people registering and also joining for this webinar. That shows that how important this is for all of you. I will also introduce the purpose of this webinar before I invite the speakers to come in. Maybe at the beginning of the year, we thought that COVID is a Chinese problem. Maybe by mid-March, we realized that it is also an Indian problem. But we thought maybe it's a problem of those in Mumbai and Delhi. But today, COVID is a household problem. For example, we have a hostel here in CHAI Directorate, a small hostel for working girls. One of our girls got infected, so we had to live with that fact that we had a COVID, a person with COVID positive in our own house, in our own building. But as long as we take the real precautions, and as long as we understand the dynamics, we will be able to live and handle, or live with COVID and handle COVID. We are also aware that some time ago, a few months or a few weeks ago, we were seeing the numbers going up. Those who are getting infected, those who are getting, those who unfortunately, who succumbed to COVID. But today, those numbers have faces. People whom we know, people whom we interacted with, people who were close to us, are also getting affected, infected. Some of them are even succumbing to the disease. There's a huge economic burden on all this. So it's very, very important for us to be prepared for this. Before I move into my presentation, we were fortunate. COVID actually knocked us off for a few days or a few weeks. But fortunately, we were able to recoup and start handling this, or catching the bull by the horn. We were fortunate to get a lot of support from our existing partners and some of the new partners. For example, I will be sharing some of those details with you so that you will also know what is happening at the CHAI Directorate. We were also fortunate to be supported by Tata Trust. Some of our hospitals were provided PPE kits. So I'm so glad about the fact that today we have Tata Trust with us. CMC Vellore, you all know, is a reputed institution. They're our friends. We work together, and it's great to have such a wonderful group with us. Of course, Sister Beena and Sister Doctors Forum have been always we had a wonderful collaboration with them. And I'm sure that there are a lot of sister doctors attending this webinar. Many of our hospitals who are taking care of COVID patients or are directly in some indirectly or directly involved are part of this webinar. So with that brief introduction, let me also flag, or let me also assert the fact that it is not only just receiving PPE kits, but it's also very, very important for us to be prepared for this. We need to know, we need to understand, we need to also pick up the skills that is necessary to handle this crisis. Being in healthcare mission, we have a responsibility, to care for others. Being a Christian network, we have a responsibility and mandate from Jesus to provide compassionate care for all those who are falling sick and affected, especially in this kind of a situation. With that brief introduction, so this whole webinar is to introduce you to a wonderful course developed by CMC Vellore with the support of Tata Trust. The details of that course will be presented today. I would encourage all of you to enroll for this course. We will have a follow-up mechanism. And also, we should get all our staff, doctors, nurses, all those who are involved in COVID care, or all those who work with us to enroll for these courses and learn how to handle this crisis. With that brief introduction, let me move on to a brief presentation on what CHAI Directorate is doing. So all that I have is one slide, but there will be some hyperlinks to this slide. So let me just explain you. These are the areas where CHAI Directorate was involved in as part of our COVID response. We were involved in socioeconomic support project because all of us know how the migrant laborers were affected and people were going hungry. So we were involved in supporting some of these people, some of the families. I'll show you some details about it in a while. We were also involved in providing PPE kits, personal protective equipments for some of our hospitals. Given our numbers, we will never be able to reach the kind of a requirement or the number of hospitals, but we are able to support about 50 of our hospitals. Not all their needs, but some of their needs. So that's the second thing. We also have a help desk, which is constantly receiving calls, reaching out, and supporting in whichever way we can. Some of the supports, like even in the initial stages, how to develop a kind of an MOU with the government, in government collaboration, all those things we could work out. And we work together along with the other Christian networks, our other partners, the CMA, EHA, and also the CMCs, which we call as a Christian Coalition for Health. And this last part is what we are going to deal today, the capacity building that is happening through CHAI Academy. This is one of the webinars, a series of webinars which are organizing. And today we will hear in detail about the online course that has been developed by CMC Vellore in collaboration with Tata Trust. So let me also give you a little more details about what we are doing in terms of socioeconomic support. But this was an e-news which we had circulated in the network. So it's basically on the socioeconomic support project. We all know that people are looking for integrity, transparency, accountability. So we could roll out a geotagging app along with this project. I can show you some of the details of the partners. You can see we have altogether 56 partners in about 17 states, I think. And we have several funding partners who came in to support us. And the last one was Lillian Foundation, we already have a disability project. So this is a very disability specific support where children with disability are supported through this project. So you can see also the breakup of the funds. Altogether, we could mobilize for this project. We could mobilize about 1.2 crores, and we are supporting about 3,250 families. Most of them for 6 months, but some of them for shorter periods. So that is something about this particular project. What I would like to highlight, we also followed a process, a transparent process of an expression of interest, calling application, shortlisting from there with the criteria. Vendor selection was done through a process, a procurement process. Yeah, so we are right now working in 17 states with 56 implementing partners reaching out to these many families. What I want to show you is the innovation that we tried in this. Right now, the second part of this Lillian Fonts is getting rolled out. So that also will be added here in a few days. So if you can see the number of states, the earlier states we were rolling out this project. And also if you click here, you can see in Andhra Pradesh, we have 3 partners. Guntur, we are working in 3 districts with 3 partners. If you go here, you can see the details of the JMJ Society, Social Service Society, who is running, and you can see all the details here in real time. Now, when, where, what time these kits were distributed, and if you go further, you can also see some more details like the photographs of and the date and time of the distribution. This is for month of June and initially was the month of May. And if you click more updates, the rest of the details also will come, photographs. And here, if you click, you can see even a little more details. You can see here 5 recipients, the details of those, when and what time, how many kits were distributed, what percentage of it is completed. There are a lot of advantages for this particular app. Okay, how do I go back from here? Right, that's about the socioeconomic support, and our donors are also very delighted about the fact that we are able to do it, transparently, more efficiently, and I think that is what people are looking forward to. How do we do things well? Now, when it comes to the PPE kits, you can see the number of hospitals that we are supporting. 49 hospitals we are able to support in different states. Of course, only a small part of the requirement we are able to give. Out of which 14 of these hospitals, we are glad to say, we appreciate Tata Trust for providing extra PPE kits. They directly provided, they took the list from us and provided. And I'm sure that Tata Trust will be able to support us, more of our hospitals. Coming to the help desk, you can see these numbers. As of now, 65 of our institutions are involved in COVID care. Some of them are care centers, some of them are dedicated hospitals, some of them are health centers. And these are hospitals which have, they're not admitting COVID patients, but they screen and then they refer. But for a short period, sometimes they will have to take care. And we have quarantine. So altogether, and this number keeps on increasing. You can see almost all the regional units are involved in this process. Last week it was around 55, and that number keeps increasing. So let me come to the capacity building process which we are doing through Chai Academy. Again, this is an e-news that we sent out recently. So we have webinars for the long-term sustainability. After we had some initial webinars to prepare the network for this because people were at a shock initially. So after those initial webinars of discussions and experience sharing, we also started focusing on long-term sustainability. Many of our hospitals went into financial crisis, how to handle it. So we are having a series of webinars with especially with the administrators and directors of our hospitals. How do we negotiate this crisis and sustain and continue our mission? So these were some of the topics. These were some of the speakers. All these things are available on our website. And the recorded sessions are there. Those who could not attend the webinar, we are putting all this, recording all this and putting it in the on the website, so you can go back and visit it. All these are actually part of the implementation of our Vision 20, where we talk about how do we facilitate interdependence, cross-learning, solidarity, and how do we continue our affordable and compassionate mission in an affordable way. So this is what is happening now. All of you might have you joined this or registered this webinar by clicking this link. In addition to this webinars, we also have self-paced online courses. One course which we started early was with this MLH platform with the collaboration with Tech Care for All, TC4IF for All, who is hosting this webinar for us now in their platform. So these were short online courses which we put up together quickly to give some initial information, one for hospital directors, one for nurses, one for doctors, one for community health providers. And these details are also available in the website. You can go and if you want to quickly learn, because for example, this is only a 7-hour course. This is only 6 hours, 8 hours, all those things. Now, this is in addition. Now, today we will be explaining to you the details of this particular course, a detailed course, a well-prepared course done by CMC Vellore, so that you can join this. There is also a the trainer component of it. So it's a thorough course prepared by CMC Vellore with the help of Tata Trust. That also is one more course that will be available. In addition to this, we had one more online course with the University of Melbourne. We have a good collaboration with the university because Mary Glowry, the founder of CHAI, was an Australian. She studied in the University of Melbourne, finished her medical studies. She came to India and she decided to become a nun, and continued the rest of her life here in India. This was in 1920, an amazing story. So University of Melbourne conducted this course for us. Monday, we are going to have a winding up of this course. This was predominantly for sister doctors. So I think this course is still open. About 50 of the sister doctors registered, and many of them were able to complete this. I'm grateful to, that is about the CHAI Academy part. I think that's all I would like to update with you. You are all part of CHAI. You are the members of CHAI. CHAI exists for you, and this is what is happening right from the directorate as of now. I'm also proud to let you know that because we are able to do things well, we are also we can see that more people are gravitating to us to help us, to support us. Good partnerships are coming in. Which is all because we are able to do things in a good way. I would conclude by thanking you all for being part of the network and also taking the mission forward together. So with that, I conclude. Thank you so much. Let me stop sharing the screen. Now I would like to invite Sister Dr. Beena. Yeah, it's wonderful to see there are 250 people joined as of now for this webinar. It's amazing. We never expected this kind of a turnout. Sister Dr. Beena, you all know about Sister Beena. She's very famous in the network now because she wrote about her story, her experience, and today she will share with you some of her experiences and that will really enlighten you. So over to Sister Dr. Beena.
Thank you, Father Matthew. Am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
we can hear you, sister. We can also see your slide. Please go ahead.
Good evening to one and all. And I thank Father Matthew for giving me this privilege and for arranging this and getting so many sister doctors to participate in this webinar. In brief, I would like to share my own experience in Holy Family Hospital, Mumbai, as we prepared and as of now, we have treated so many patients. So my experience, my COVID journey with you all. On 30th of January, India reported its first case, COVID-19 in Kerala, which rose to, by 3rd February, to 3 cases. All these 3 cases were students from China who returned from China to Kerala. So no new cases were reported for next few weeks in India. So as Father Matthew rightly said, I was in a denial stage at that time. The first few days of February passed by with a pseudo safety feeling, as I was under the notion that COVID-19 is limited to China. Unfortunately, when the coronavirus crossed geographical boundaries and spread to newer territories, it set an alert tone within me. The horrifying news reports from China, Italy, and other countries disturbed me, as I could foresee what is awaiting us in India. I was also not so sure about how we will be able to manage the pandemic crisis, given the Indian socio-economic context and the fragile healthcare system.
Sister Beena, let me
Yes.
come in. You have not moved your slide, I think. Can you move on to the next slide?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, please. Go ahead, go ahead.
Yes. So when we look at the healthcare system of our country, we see there is wide gap in our Indian healthcare sector between the poor and the rich, the urban and the rural. There is also a profit-oriented medical treatment offered by corporate hospitals. The medical supply chain is fragmented. In addition to it, we have shortage of trained medical personnel. With all these, I was perplexed. How can we offer, amid such a scenario, compassionate, affordable, and quality care to the common people who are going to get affected by COVID? I think few other members of the management committee of our hospital, Holy Family Mumbai, also recognize that coronavirus is going to affect India in a very bad way, and especially Mumbai city. Planning and follow-up actions immediately began. So it has been a journey filled with uncertainty, challenges, fears, trials, and fulfillment. Managing the new cases and managing this new disease posed a lot of administrative hurdles, operational challenges, clinical dilemmas, and financial constraints. Initially, the planning meetings began, and we started intense training sessions, which was conducted for all strata of our staff, from doctors to the housekeeping employees. It included training on COVID-19 management, infection control precautions, donning and doffing procedures, etc. We also involved a counselor to address and deal with the fear and stress factor of our staff. Later, in mid-March, we procured high-quality personal protective equipment to provide best possible protection for our medical team. We also ensured adequate stock of other hygiene products for sanitizing, surface cleaning, and fogging. At the same time, a team was set aside with the task of preparing standard operative protocols, infection control policies, clinical and treatment guidelines in the hospital. With the help of our legal advisor, we had also prepared a MOU to work and collaborate with Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai. It took almost 1 month to operationalize the COVID-19 ward and ICU, since the regulations with regard to the isolation wards required major changes in our existing setup. Optimum partitions and barriers were made to isolate the clean and contaminated zones. Appropriate distinctive areas were designed for donning and doffing of PP. Our maintenance team ensured necessary engineering modifications such as installation of exhaust fans, air purifiers in COVID wards, and open fresh air ducts and separate exhaust system in COVID ICUs. Plumbing works began for the availability of hot water shower rooms, which were completed before we started the unit. So once we prepared with all this, we started our COVID ward. It started with a 12-bed facility in collaboration with Government of Maharashtra. Then we slowly expanded our bed strength. What we started from a 25-bedded facility in our hospital, we had increased at one point of time 140 beds, including 28 ICU beds. So there were numerous teething problems when we operationalized the isolation units. Although we anticipated few, the new challenges increased my stress levels. So we had to hold several rounds of meetings to motivate, to encourage, and to boost the morale of our doctors, nurses, and other employees. So almost every week we had to meet our intensivist, our resident doctors, the ward in charges, and also once in 2 weeks our nursing staff. In fact, I was very closely accompanying our DNB students who were a great pillar of support and who are still, and also some of our consultants, because all of them were in trying times. Few of them contracted the illness, and we sisters took utmost care to share our solidarity, love, and concern when they were ill. And this kind of understanding gestures actually increased their loyalty towards us. And now they are back again in the COVID ward. As all of you are aware, a lot of fear and stigma is associated with the COVID-19 illness. The patients are worried, distressed, and fear-stricken. They are worried because they fear an impending death. It demands a lot of energy and efforts to listen to them, to reassure them, and to comfort them. Similarly, the relatives are anxious, tensed, and they are panicking at all times. On an average, even today, I spend 1 to 2 hours to update the patient's relatives about the status of the patient. There were days in the late evenings, I returned to my room emotionally drained and physically exhausted. At one point of time, few of our doctors and nurses and other employees contracted the illness. The news about their sickness shook me. On one hand, the worries about their well-being. On the other hand, the fear of contracting illness. And besides this, I was stressed about the COVID ward management with acute shortage of human resource. That's the time we developed a strategy and backup plan to manage acute human resource constraints. Even managing the infected nurses' parents and responding to their numerous queries was a very stressful experience for our nursing director. There were times we had to refuse admissions to patients due to non-availability of beds, especially in month of May and month of June. Unfortunately, during those occasions, we were pressurized by some media houses and activists. This was not only stressful, but the misinformation and biased partial truth fed to the newspapers and social media has had a negative impact on our personnel who are dedicated even beyond their call of duty. It's extremely sad sometimes to accept these realities, but these are the truth, what we have to face in our journey and in our mission. Those of you who have donned PP kit for 6 hours or more surely know how suffocating it is and how difficult it is to move around with PP kit. So all these factors increased my fatigue level and as well as all the other COVID warriors' fatigue level. Financial challenges. We had a lot of financial challenges in the last 4 months and still continue to have it. Ever since the preparations were initiated in the hospital, we have been incurring substantial new and unplanned costs. The situation brought about by the coronavirus attack, such as PP, mask for all staff and for patients, use of hand sanitizers, continuous sanitization of hospital premises, everything has increased the operational cost. Unfortunately, many vendors of these items have increased their prices exponentially since there were acute shortage of these items. As we prepare to deal an escalation of positive cases of coronavirus, we had to temporarily close many of our existing services, especially the OPDs, elective surgeries, and some of the diagnostic services. This has resulted in a significant drop in revenues, even as the hospital continue to service our expenditure. The unplanned and unavoidable expenses being incurred at a time when our revenues are severely impacted has caused a major strain on our financial resources. Besides this, the government of Maharashtra has capped charges for 80% of our beds. So today we have to treat a COVID patient in a general ward for 4,000 rupees per day. And all of you know what is the cost of PPs and other investigation. So it is actually, the financial status has got a lot of impact due to COVID pandemic. After having said about the challenges, we keep wondering what motivates us to keep working under such strenuous conditions. First of all, for us, healthcare is not a business, but it's a ministry, it's a mission. Secondly, when every patient recovers and becomes COVID negative, it really lifts our spirit and motivates us to do better work and serve our patients and nation when it is needed the most. So far, here in Holy Family Hospital, Mumbai, we have treated about 1,200 COVID patients. Every recovery and discharge is a rewarding moment for the entire medical team. There's always a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction amidst all fatigue and exhaustion of these harrowing times. I'm sure all of you here will agree with me that the joy of saving a life is a feeling which is much beyond any other joys in life. Besides this, opening our hospital facilities to take care of COVID patients actually improved the patient satisfaction index. We have got a lot of positive feedbacks and good Google reviews these days. This positive impact has helped the hospital to have a better reputation and visibility these days. Definitely, it has generated a lot of goodwill. We have experienced and we got a lot of support in terms of donation from many of our friends, well-wishers, and benefactors. We have also built relationship with persons whom we have never knew before the COVID pandemic. I personally believe that going through all these experiences, I too am getting enriched, and in a way, I too am growing. I was telling you all about the challenges, the fatigue, and the emotional drain which I experienced some of the days. I'm sure every healthcare worker at the forefront of the war against coronavirus are not only facing the task of handling the patient, but are also fighting to keep their own worries and emotional stress at bay. So I would like to share with you all few of my tips which helped me to sustain myself. For the past 4 months, I am on tablet hydroxychloroquine prophylaxis. I also take 1000 milligram of vitamin C and B complex supplements. I ensure intake of good nutritious diet, adequate rest whenever possible, and optimum hours of sleep. Besides this, a variety of home remedies to boost up the immune system are also being tried in my community time and again. To this group, I need not share and emphasize the importance or the vital role of prayer for our spiritual nourishment. Yet I thought of sharing it. The time spent in prayer, silence, and reflection gives me a lot of peace and serenity. Surrendering myself to God, I seek His guidance, wisdom, and strength. It's also equally important to keep ourselves physically and mentally fit. After a stressful day, I go for a 30-minute walk. And we come together in the community for dinner, which is a wonderful time for relaxation for all of us sisters in the community. After an exhaustive long day, sometimes chatting with your colleague or your friend also helps me to unwind. In short, a positive mindset and generous attitude also enabled me to be proactive and hopeful. All of us know that coronavirus is a pandemic which is evolving. Till date, no one has understood the disease completely. We are uncertain about in which phase of the pandemic we are in. There are a lot of information available today, and we are confused with all this information, whether we have already crossed the peak or the peak is yet to come, or do we have many small waves like this. Only one thing is sure, that the number of cases are increasing daily. There are also hypotheses that corona may remain in India as an endemic disease like malaria. But looking at the present day scenario, as the numbers are increasing exponentially, I feel that more and more hospitals may have to get prepared to manage this pandemic. So my suggestion is, let us collaborate. Let us join hands with one another and learn from each other's experience and expertise. I conclude by quoting the words of St. Paul, "We are in this struggle together," it's Philippians 1:30. And so I'm hopeful that together we shall overcome this invisible common enemy, COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Meera. You can stop sharing your screen. You can stop sharing the screen, Sister.
I'm just trying to do that. Yeah.
It's on the top, yeah. Kritika, what I'm seeing is...
Yes, sir.
Sister Beena. Sister Beena, you have not stopped sharing the screen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Stopped.
Well, thank you, Sister Beena. Every time we listen to your sharing, it's always enriching. And you represent not only SDFI or Holy Family or Chai, but you represent thousands and 10,000s of sisters who have now decided to follow God, and to be in His mission, reaching out to people. So you represent all those sisters. So many people say that when you share, it's not only you, people feel proud of the whole group of sisters who dedicate their whole life, for the sake of God and for the sake of God's people and the mission. So thank you once again for all that you are doing, and we are proud of the fact that you are part of our network, and all, not only you, all the sisters who are involved in this great mission. Thank you once again. Let me move on to Dr. Sitaraman. Dr. Sitaram is a well-experienced person representing Tata Trust. He's a medical doctor from a community health or public health background. We are so glad to have you here today. Your detailed profile is known to people. We have circulated it as part of the invitation, so I don't have to say much about it. So over to Dr. Sitaraman. Thank you.
Thank you, Father Matthew, and thank you, Sister Dr. Beena. It's been very enlightening to see from your experiences the struggle we are going through during these difficult times. And can I share my screen?
Yeah, please, you could share your screen, yes.
Are you able to see it?
Not yet. Yes, now we can see it, yes.
Yeah, so let me start with a brief introduction of Tata Trust. It's been starting from 1892 and started by Mr. Jamsetji Tata, the pioneer and visionary. And the key word with the Tata Trust is non-sectarian philanthropy. That's what the organization stood for decades and decades. And the money, the efforts, the resources they have shared to the community over the last more than 100 years is not matched by any other philanthropic organization in the country. Its current mission of the trust is to positively and sustainably impact 100 million lives by 2021. And the key emphasis is to provide accessible, affordable, quality, and patient-centric healthcare to all Indians. And the mission is to positively impact 100 million lives by strengthening the healthcare delivery capabilities. And our emphasis mainly on the access to the care and to have a quality care and to build capacities across the value chain. And we have also many verticals within Tata Trust. They include livelihoods, migrant workers, water and sanitation, skills, arts, in addition to healthcare. Healthcare is just one of the portfolios, and we are currently dealing with the health portfolio. And our key areas include non-communicable and communicable diseases and mental health, reproductive and maternal child health, elderly care, and medical research, and BCC activities, and healthcare delivery activities. And of late, the more emphasis is on infrastructure and in technology. So how we engage with the communities is they are broadly in four ways. One is public-private partnership. This is the area where we emphasize more. As far as possible, we try to collaborate with the governments in the healthcare delivery systems. And that gives us more satisfaction and more visibility. And all that we do is most of the work is done by the governments. We just help as a facilitators or catalyst to see that the work moves on fast. And other collaboration is to work with private organizations, something like we are working with you here. Although you are not strictly in the sense a private organization, you are a charitable organization, but still partnering with organizations. And then we do our own projects, and some of those projects we do by ourselves. These we called as direct implementation projects, DIs. We do it directly by Tata Trust, or these are done or operated through our affiliated organizations. Another fourth common way we engage in this area is through providing grants to key areas. Again, these grants are by and large given to non-profitable organizations to achieve a particular goal or a particular subject. And the key drivers for this transformation are to move towards proactive health instead of reactive health, and to emphasize more on the information-based structure facilitation, and to provide more value-based services instead of working on volume-based services. So our key areas, again, the key drivers is one is capacity building. This is one of the areas where we are currently working with CMC and CHI. And to provide proof of concepts through different pilot projects, we are working in Gorakhpur of UP for the prevention and control of acute encephalitis syndrome, wherein we are trying to come out with a good proof of concept as requested by the government. Then the government can expand it and scale it up across other geographies. And third area is technology, where we are working with the telemedicine solutions and IT-based structures. Then collaborations. Collaborations is again with the governments in different project areas. So the current emphasis is to provide the healthcare benefits to at least 100 million Indians by 2024. And we already reached more than 70 million already in this area. And our way of doing it is through empowering the citizens' health and to helping with more efficient healthcare systems and to provide a vibrant health economy through affordable care. Particularly, this affordable care is mainly we are working through telemedicine and telehealth projects, which have proven beyond doubt that the out-of-pocket expenses have come down drastically, and also due to a more solid primary health care, the footfall in the tertiary care hospitals in those areas have come down significantly. So how we do is when we work with the governments, particularly in the collaborations, we do the gap analysis in the systems. We take this to the government at different levels, and we try to help in closing most of these gaps, all with the government infrastructure and government sources only. Our role is primarily in facilitating and to work as catalysts. Then we do the grants, as I was telling, and direct implementations and technical support units to provide models. Then we do capacity building and data analytics. And we provide technical support, particularly in this COVID era. We are helping with the government of Telangana in providing 24 hours, 24/7 COVID helpline, wherein there are around more than 10,000 home isolation patients in Telangana. And each patient is called and tracked by this call center. And also the patients have been given the number, toll-free number to call at any time. So these people, call takers who are supported by nurses and doctors, they guide the patients, and whenever it is required, they connect with 108 and they provide ambulance services to move the patient to a facility. So that is with tech support. It's we are doing a lot of IT-based services in this area. And how we organize is we have broadly 8 or 9 sub-themes. One is mother and child health and communicable diseases, non-communicable diseases. Then health system strengthening. This is primarily where we are doing the IT-based supports. Then nutrition, cancer care. Cancer care, we have started us has set up large cancer hospitals across the country. over the past 4-5 years. Of course, Tata Memorial Hospital is there, but anyway, it was given away to the government of India. Then veterinary care and the India Health Fund, wherein we are focusing primarily on malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV control, and geriatric care. So sub-theme wise geography of coverage, as you see, it's more or less it covers the entire country, all these areas which I have mentioned. If a state is not covered with a grant, that state is compensated with a direct implementation project or collaborations. So more or less, almost all states have been touched. And we are currently giving 49 major grants to the different parts of the country. And these are the examples and geographies. As I said, these gray areas with 0 grants, they have large collaborations and other direct implementation projects instead of having grants. So these are the geographies where the key direct implementation projects are going on, like NCD, that is, we are supporting the government of India in providing tech-based support services for screening for non-communicable diseases. So far, we have enrolled more than 13 crore population, and more than 4 crores have been screened. Now they have been referred and either confirmed or ruled out for those conditions. It is going on very well for the last 1.5 years, and it is another 2 years it will be completed and totally handed over to Government of India. And there are many other projects we'll be very happy to share with the participants about the different types of projects we are working on, because I don't want to go into details of all these projects at this point of time, to save time for the key purpose of this meeting. So coming to the COVID related programs, see, we are doing as Father Matthew has been saying, that we have procured huge quantities of PPEs from different parts of the globe, and we have supplied to most of the states and union territories governments. And after completing the supplies to governments, we started giving it away to charity hospitals and also to some private organizations who have requested us. We are still getting requests, and we are still supplies depending upon the availability of the kits with us. And then we have launched a big mass communication program for behavioral communication activities, behavioral change communication, what we call. This is where we used more than 7,000 of our staff working in different verticals. We first trained them in how to deal with the COVID related activities and how to protect oneself. Now they are, as part of their day-to-day interactions with the communities across the country, they are passing on these messages. And then we are doing this virtual training programs because of the lockdowns related to it. CMC Vellore has got a beautiful distance education projects, particularly in the medical subjects over the past few years. And we know that they are providing very high quality distance education programs, which are very popular. We approached them, but here the problem is, it is not that we cannot have any in-person training activities. So we requested CMC Vellore, who have readily agreed to modify their content and to shorten it to make it a more reasonably faster training project for training the people across the country virtually. So this is one of the projects. Now Dr. Pradeep will guide you through and involve you. I am very sure that you will take part in it, and you'll be highly motivated once you start taking the course, and you'll really enjoy it, and you'll get more knowledge-based skills. And also, if you prefer to take advanced course, that also adds the skill-based training to the critically ill patients. In addition to these things, during these COVID-related things, we are also collaborating and providing grants to some of the organizations for academic and research collaborations. So I would like to stop here and request Father Matthew and Dr. Pradeep to take off, and our team will be very happy to support you through this training. Thank you, Professor Matthews, Sister Bina, and others. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Sitaram. We are so grateful that you are reaching out to us, especially when we have such great need here. I'm so glad that you're part of this webinar because probably by this time you also would have understood some, uh, some ideas about what happens at the field, I mean, at the grassroots level. Thanks. So CMC Vellore, we don't have to introduce CMC Vellore because CMC Vellore is so famous all over the country, especially within our network. So thank you, Dr. Pradeep and Dr. Arun for joining us. Your profiles have been circulated to the group, so they all know about it. So without taking much time, I leave it to you to, this is the most important part of the webinar. So over to you, Dr. Pradeep.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much to Father Matthew and to the CHAI team for inviting me and Mr. Arun from the CMC to come and make a short presentation on some of the courses that we are running for developing preparedness and building the capacity of hospitals and personnel to handle COVID-19, the pandemic, and to manage COVID-19 patients. It's always very inspiring to hear the stories from the CHAI network, and it has been very inspiring to listen to Sister Dr. Beena's experiences of her care of patients in Mumbai. And she has said a lot of the things that I would like to also add on in my presentation. Thank you very much again for this opportunity to spend this afternoon with you. As you all know, Father Matthew has already spoken and Sister Beena too. The COVID patients have been...
Pradeep, there's a request from the crowd, whether you could be a little more loud. Could you speak to the mic and speak a little louder?
Sure, I will move a little closer to my screen.
Thank you, go ahead.
Is this clearer?
Say it once again, please.
Am I clearer now?
Yeah, you're better, right.
Okay.
Go ahead, please.
So as Father Matthew and Sister Beena had mentioned in their presentation, the numbers of COVID patients have been steadily rising over the last few months, starting from Kerala, and now, you know, there is no part of the country that has not been affected. At the same time, this pandemic has shown us very clearly how badly our health system is lacking in terms of trained personnel, equipment, ICU facilities. Our whole health system has been badly overwhelmed, and as you all know. These are some pictures actually which came from Italy and the USA and Spain initially in the pandemic. And now we hear the same stories from our own hospital where wards are full. There are patients frantically trying to get ICU beds and to get admitted into ICUs, and they're just not able to do so. And patients are being managed in corridors, and now a lot of patients just being sent home because there are a lack of beds. And now many governments are now making it possible to treat patients at home. So the whole health system is, as you all know, very badly overwhelmed through this crisis. And in this context, CMC Vellore has been trying to respond to this need by trying to fulfill 4 needs of the country at this point of time. The first need, of course, is the need in terms of quantity. There, as you all know, there's a shortage of healthcare facilities. And in our country, any facility will very quickly be overwhelmed just because of our sheer population numbers. And there's a picture here of a train which is overwhelmed, and that's true of our hospitals and our clinics. Any new facility in this hospital will very quickly be overwhelmed with the need. But it's not just the quantity, it's also the quality. Unfortunately, as you all know, the health system in our country is not really known for its good quality. In fact, there are so many jokes and so many WhatsApp messages circulating about doctors and nurses, and you know, we are the butt of everybody's anger and ridicule at this time. And there's a sense that most of the country is not really providing good quality care. If you want to have good quality care, you should not go, say, to a public health system, to a government hospital, or you should not go to a mission hospital. Maybe you should go to a corporate hospital. Rightly or wrongly, this is an impression which is there all over the country. There is also, like was mentioned earlier, this vast gap between the urban part of India and the rural part of India. Most of India's population, as we all know, lives in rural India, but most of India's healthcare professionals live in the cities, in urban parts of India. And lastly, sadly, is the issue of ethical problems, values problems. Somehow the healthcare system in India is now called an industry. And that's the perception in the minds of people as well, that doctors are in this, and nurses and other healthcare professionals in this to make a lot of money, to exploit their distress and their difficulties and just make themselves rich in some way, you know. And there are so many other values and ethical issues as well. And I think this pandemic also has highlighted many of those issues and brought them right out into the forefront. So at CMC, we have been trying to build COVID preparedness at all fronts. The idea is to build up the capacity of healthcare workers and healthcare institutions across the country to be prepared to handle this pandemic and to be prepared to treat patients at all levels. So as you know, there are some patients who can be managed at COVID care centers. There are some who need to be sent on to dedicated COVID health centers. And there are some who need to be referred to dedicated COVID hospitals. There are some who need to be admitted in ICUs for critical care. And so we have been trying to devise or design a course that will build the capacity of healthcare workers at all these levels to be able to handle and manage successfully the patients that come to them in this problem at this time. So who is this course designed for? I'm really here to describe, to introduce to you two courses that we have designed. The first course that I'm going to talk about is something called the short course or the basic course. And the second course that I'm going to talk to you about is something called the advanced course or the critical care course. Now, both these courses, both the short course and the advanced course, have been designed for doctors. They can be junior doctors maybe who have not had much experience in managing sick patients. Could be doctors from other specialties. I am myself a pediatric surgeon by training, and I am in touch with pediatric surgeons all over the country. And I know that a number of my colleagues, pediatric surgeons, who have never ever in their life ever managed an adult patient. You know, straight after MBBS, some of them joined in for a 5-year or 6-year comprehensive degree, MCH degree in pediatric surgery. They've never managed an adult patient. But now in the middle of this COVID pandemic, they are being called upon to man COVID wards and to work in COVID ICUs. They're doing COVID duties, and they've never managed an adult before. So this course that we have designed is not just for junior doctors, it's for doctors from other specialties, preclinical doctors, paraclinicals, doctors who are now, because of the need of the moment, being pressed in to work and do COVID duties. It's also for nurses who have maybe never worked in an ICU setting or never worked in an isolation ward type of setting. And it's designed to help to build their capacity as well. And in addition, for any medical background technician, like an anesthesia technician or a critical care technician or a OT technician, somebody who is also likely during this pandemic time to be called on to manage or to work with COVID patients. So this course has been designed keeping these three populations in mind. We follow this verse in the Bible, which says, I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. Now, as you all know, there's no shortage of COVID courses already. There are plenty of courses all over the country. In CMC, in the distance education department, just to give you all a little introduction to the Department of Distance Education. In this department, we have developed a number of courses that use a concept called blended learning. In blended learning, there is a component of online learning, which you can do by yourself, sitting in your own room or in your own home, You can read some modules online. And at the same time, there is a component of face-to-face learning, where we have contact classes or, where you can come and meet with a small group of people and have face-to-face learning. And in this way, we are running in this department a number of blended learning courses. And usually the model that we use is something called the trainer cascade model. So where the knowledge, we get a group of trainers and they are trained to become lead trainers. And then they identify trainees, or trainees are put in touch with them, and they pass on the training to the trainees and so on. So some of the knowledge component, the knowledge about COVID, or about any of these courses. We are running family medicine course, geriatric medicine, rehabilitation courses, mental health courses, all through this blended learning platform, where some of the knowledge issues are addressed through this online platform or through modules. And then there are some skills and value issues that are addressed through contact classes and through face-to-face interaction. We started off with self-learning modules. A number of you who are sitting here on today's call have probably seen these modules, maybe done the postgraduate diploma in family medicine that has been run in our department for many years. And now these modules have been replaced with online learning. Then there are pre-recorded videos, there's face-to-face contact sessions, video conferencing, clinical skills training, all these components, which is the usual way in which we run our blended learning programs. And CMC Vellore carries out its training through a number of regional training centers all over the country, as you can see. And through all our programs, we have been trying to focus on the head, where we are addressing knowledge issues, but also the heart and our hands, the skills component and the values and the ethical component through the various courses that we are running. And as you all know, we need, and as Sister Beena showed us very clearly in her presentation, we need all these three in order to be able to overcome this crisis. Now, COVID-19 has changed the dynamics of this type of distance education. As you all know, there are travel restrictions. If you were to travel from one place to the other, you would need to go into quarantine. Contact classes, face-to-face interaction is not possible during this pandemic. At the same time, there's a huge need, as I already mentioned, need for trained doctors, nurses, paramedical technicians at every level who can handle this problem. And so with this in mind, this short course has been designed, the integrated short course. What are some of the features of this integrated short course? Once a person enrolls for this integrated short course in the management of COVID-19, they will get access to a number of online interactive content in the form of modules. There are 6 modules that have been developed. And so students, for want of a better word, let me use the word students. Students who would like to enroll in this short course will get login credentials so that they can access this content online and then proceed at their own pace, at their own convenience, in their own rooms, based on their own schedules and their own timetable. They can read through these modules, do some assessments and assignments, which are a sort of feedback to themselves. Doing these assignments, they will learn about how they are understanding and how they are going through this course. And these modules have been made with the people working in COVID care centers or dedicated COVID health centers and dedicated COVID hospitals without ICUs. It's made with this population in mind. So this course, the short course, will be useful for just doctors, nurses, and technicians who are working in the smaller hospitals without ICUs, maybe in clinics, peripheral clinics. This short course does not have any of the critical care modules. So to give you a brief idea of the 6 modules that are covered in this short course, it starts off with some basic things like managing the triage in your hospital, how to categorize patients, how to decide which patient goes where, some basic health education materials that you can use. Then it proceeds on to how to manage a quarantine or an isolation ward, maybe in a COVID care center, how to establish it, how to work as a team, how to manage the movement within the center, how to protect yourself from infections, how to prevent infections from spreading within the quarantine or the isolation facility. Managing infections, starts out with basic things like hand washing, wearing of a face mask, how to wear and remove gloves and PPEs, and then managing the patient himself. So it talks about the various clinical syndromes that are seen, how to give good oxygen therapy and respiratory support, and how to identify that a person may be deteriorating and may need referral to an ICU. Then talks a little bit about how to monitor patients before sending them to ICU, or patients who might need to be sent to an ICU in module 5. And module 6, which is a very important module, as Sister Beena already mentioned, is talking about how to take care of yourself and how to take care of the other members of your team. So communication skills, taking care of your own mental health, the mental health of your team members, and various ethical issues related to the care of these critically ill patients. So these are the modules present in our short course. So if you join for the short course, and we are hoping that many of you will be able to do this, you will get an online access, and then at your own pace, at your own convenience, you can go through these modules and familiarize yourself with the content and get ready to manage patients with COVID-19. So this is how your modules will look. And at this point of time, I'm just going to stop for a few moments and stop sharing my screen and invite Mr. Arun Zakaria, who is one of our team members who leads our technology part of this department, to take you through the short course modules and just to show you how it looks and the tech aspects of this program. Over to Mr. Arun Zakaria.
Thank you, Dr. Pradeep, and thank you for Father Matthew for this forum. Just going to spend a brief few moments showing you how the modules look like. We're using a learning management system in the cloud, and every student gets a login and password. And once you are logged in, you get access to the modules, which Dr. Pradeep already showed you. Now, these modules are designed as self-learning modules. So the onus is on the student to go through them, and they're designed very carefully to allow for learning to happen very interactively, and it's not just a video or a PDF to read. So once you start a module, and I'm just starting the first one, which is Introduction to Hospital Preparedness, you will see what we call as a SCORM module, which is the technical term for it. But essentially, it helps you to interactively study. And each of these modules is designed with the academics in mind, learning objectives clearly stated at the beginning of each module. And as you go through, you can see your progress, which is continuing to show up here on your side. There's a lot of information, and there's graphics. There's trigger questions along the way. So you actually have to take a quiz, and you can continue on. And it actually gives you a response right back if it's right or wrong. So that allows you to keep learning in the formative assessments. And then you can move on to the next module. And all the time, the academic team is keeping track of the various activities that the students are conducting. Now there's videos, there's audio, and there's interactive pictures and images that you can click through, all of which we found in our 15 years of doing distance learning is of great help. So you can go through, and we've tried to make it as interactive and as interesting to the student as possible, because we understand that most of the students might at this time might be studying on their own and might not really have others to talk with or to learn in a classroom setting. So we've tried to make that in such a way. So it's very easy to use, but very focused on getting the objectives across with a very good mix of different multimedia and text and all of that that is available. And you can see we've got all our modules, and this is the basic one. So we've got triage and quarantine, isolation, infection control, isolation ward, and the managing patients and managing yourself and the team. So they've taken care to cover all the aspects of it. And so we've been able to train already several hundred doctors in various parts of the country on this course, the basic COVID course. And as Dr. Pradeep mentioned, we also have a advanced version of this course. So just briefly wanted to show you how the learning material looks like. If any of you have any further questions, you can connect with either us at CMC or at Tata Trust, and we can provide even more detailed info if you would like that. I'd like to hand over back to Dr. Pradeep at this time.
Thank you. Thank you, Arun. I will just share my screen again. So to summarize, in the basic course or in the short course, you will get access to these online modules, and you can just read it at your own pace. And there are no critical care modules in this basic version. Now, once in a month, we also from CMC conduct a webinar. We held a webinar earlier this week, and we'll be holding another webinar later in this month, where a number of the questions of people who are doing the basic course or who are doing the advanced course can be addressed and answered in an interactive manner in these webinars, which is held once a month. Now, at this point of time, I would also like to talk a little bit about the advanced course. And if you have done the basic course and you have read through the basic modules and you would like to upgrade to the advanced course, that is also possible. So just a little brief introduction to what the advanced course looks like. The advanced course, in addition to the modules which are there in the basic course, many of the modules are just the same between the basic course and the advanced course. So I showed you that the basic course has 6 modules. And those 6 modules are exactly the same in the advanced course, though they are maybe arranged a little differently. But in the advanced course, it also includes a lot of material for managing critically ill patients who need ICU management. So the advanced course has 9 modules instead of 6 modules. And a lot of the modules are the same, as you can see. But then it talks a little bit about respiratory support, about ventilating, about endotracheal suction, setting up the suction apparatus, various respiratory related problems, and precautions, special precautions that should be taken during this time of COVID-19. Then there's a module on cardiovascular support, including, putting in arterial lines and central lines and cardiac arrest, and interpreting ABGs and VBGs, and starting inotrope support and ECG changes. All of these are also there. And another section on how to maintain ICU equipment. So cleaning equipment, checking your crash cart and defibrillator, things like that. So the advanced course has some extra modules. So there are totally 9 modules, which can be used for people who are working in an ICU or a critical care setting. In addition, in the advanced course, we place a very high level of importance on what's written here as mastery of essential skills. There are a number of skills that we think are very important for people who are managing patients with COVID-19. Of course, this includes some simple skills that you are all familiar with, like putting on a face mask, doing a good hand washing, donning PPEs, doffing PPEs, things like that. But includes also more advanced skills like intubating a patient, caring for a central line, doing endotracheal suction, and some other skills like breaking bad news to a patient or communicating effectively to a patient and to patient relatives. So we consider these as very essential skills, and we wanted to design a course in which these skills also could be picked up by people who go through the program. Like we talked about the head, the heart, and the hands. To sum it up, the basic course will talk a lot of head issues and maybe a little bit of heart issues that will come through reading the online interactive module. But the advanced course also talks about some of the hand issues. How do you pick up these skills and practically develop expertise in it so that you can handle patients with COVID-19? It also includes some case scenarios, some simulations, and things like that in the advanced course. Now, how we do this is that the advanced course runs with a trainer cascade model. So like we all know, during COVID-19, we cannot have contact classes. And you all cannot come to CMC to have a contact class. So the model that we have tried to adapt in this time of COVID-19 is we invite hospitals to identify potential trainers. So let's say a hospital identifies that this doctor and this nurse can be locally resource people in our own hospital. Maybe they have experience in handling sick patients, or maybe they are experienced in working in the ICU, or they are good trainers. And so the hospital sends these trainers for an online faculty development program that we will conduct from CMC, where the trainer is equipped with ideas about adult education, how to pass on ideas to adult learners, and given an overview of the course, taken through some of the important points. So we are doing an online faculty development program. And then the trainer goes through the course material over a couple of weeks and then starts identifying trainees from his or her hospital. So these, like I said, again, could be doctors, nurses, or technicians. And the trainer says, I would like to train these trainees. And over the next few months, the trainer can train many, many batches of trainees from their own hospital. And in this way, the trainer or the person who is identified from this hospital to be a trainer can work with a number of the staff of the hospital, doctors, nurses, and technicians, and slowly build up their capacity and their capability to handle sick patients and the serious issues that are coming up with COVID-19. And over time, the capacity of the entire hospital has been built up to not only handle COVID-19, which is our immediate problem, but to handle critically ill patients in the future as well. And of course, people who do the advanced critical care course will get a CMC or a Tata certificate at the end on completion. This is how it works. We have online Zoom meetings like what we're doing today, a faculty development program. And then the trainer is a local resource person for the trainees that they take on. And the trainer helps the trainees to go through the material as needed, and maybe watch them do skills and make sure that they're doing it in a proper way, and maybe has discussions on case scenarios and simulations, uses all the material that is there in the advanced course, so that improves the learning experience for both the trainers and the trainees, and gradually improves the capacity of the hospital to handle critically ill patients in the future. So this is how it works, the trainer cascade model. And we are hoping that many of you in your institutions will be able to take advantage of provided by Tata Trust and CMC Fellow to build up the capacity of your institutions and your HR, your doctors, nurses, and technicians to be able to handle COVID-19 now and critically ill patients in the future. So thank you again for this opportunity to introduce these two courses to you, the short course and the advanced course. And welcome to join these courses. And together, like Sister Beena said, this is interdependent on each other. And together we will be able to win this battle and make a difference in the management of COVID-19 patients in this country. Thank you. And let me hand over back to Father Matthew.
Thank you, Pradeep. Wonderful. That was the core of this webinar. And Arun, thanks for demonstrating the course. Yes, we will now move on to a short question answer session. There are already some question answers have come. Some of you have asked whether you can get the join the module, sorry, the course immediately. Definitely, we are working out a mechanism. We will definitely facilitate that for you. We are working out a mechanism with Tata Trust and CMC Vellore to make sure that all, if possible, all of our healthcare providers are trained well, and we have all the expertise of CMC Vellore taught here. So thanks once again, Dr. Pradeep and Arun. Thanks, CMC Vellore. Now open to questions. So what we will do is Kritika will probably, she might have already compiled these questions into a PPT. So she will present it there. And the panelists, whoever is comfortable, you can answer those questions.
So should I read out the questions?
Yeah, 1 second, Kritika. See, we wouldn't like the participants to ask questions because it will create a lot of confusion if many people start unmuting. So that's why we ask you to send the questions on the question answer. If you have further questions, please type it on the Q&A platform, not the chat platform. Keep typing as you listen. Yeah. So Kritika, you can read out the questions, and whoever is comfortable from the panel could answer those questions.
Yeah. So the first questions we have is for Dr. Beena. What have you done to alleviate the anxiety of the patients as well as the relatives when one is affected by the pandemic? Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yes. My patients, I personally have counseled them, I have listened to them, I have reassured them. Most of them have this fear. Most of the patients, once they get COVID and they are admitted, they think that they are going to die. The fear of death, the fear of going into ICU, the fear of going on a ventilator. These are some of the common fears. There are also patients who are having a very bad kind of stigma that what will they do and what are their relatives doing. Most of the time, the patients who got admitted with us, their relatives were in quarantine. BMC immediately puts them to quarantine, so they were not able to connect to them. Sometimes they were not able to bring the medications, like some of the medications at that time we had very severe shortage, like remdesivir or tocilizumab. So such patients, we used to do a video counseling, or a video call to the patient relative, and patient used to communicate to the relatives and make themselves relaxed once they communicate. We have also had several incidents that they are not, once a patient is very critical, they are not able to communicate with the patients. So it takes hours to get in touch with the intensivist or the consultant or the duty resident doctor to find out the status of the patient and to relate that to the relatives. See, when we had 140 patients, it was impossible for the even the ward in charges or the consultant to communicate. So we said just 2 minutes of communication if the patients are stable, and we will inform you as and when required. So this was going on for quite some time. So the patient relatives used to be panic like anything. They used to call us, and even today I spent on an average 1 to 2 hours talking to different patients' relatives regarding the status of the patient. We have also arranged, some of the patients were very anxious, so they were asking for some prayers. Initially we were arranging a video prayer and blessing. We used to arrange some priests. Nowadays 1 or 2 young priests have agreed to come inside, so the Catholic patients get the anointing of the sick and blessing prayer.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is
Sister Beena. Pradeep, would you like to share something on this, how CMC is handling this? I think you're on mute, Pradeep.
Yeah, Father Matthew, actually right now I'm based in Goa, and I'm not actually based right now in Vellore. I am part of CMC's distance off-site team.
Yeah, I understand. But any feedback? Okay, so will Arun be able to say something? What is being done in CMC regarding alleviating patients' anxiety? If not, no problem. We'll move on.
No, I think both of us are not actually
The
involved
right people to answer that. Okay. We'll move on. Yeah, Kritika.
Yeah. So for Sister Beena again, what are the newer symptoms added to COVID-19 diagnosis considering regular dealing of patients? Is the large spectrum of symptoms coming in?
Unlike other viruses, I think COVID-19 has got a wide spectrum of clinical presentation. It can see, initially we thought about only the respiratory system gets affected, but today we know gastrointestinal GI symptoms, patient present with diarrhea, abdominal discomfort, acute abdomen-like symptom. Patient can come with acute MI, it can affect the cardiovascular system. Patient can throw a thromboembolism and come, and many patients had come to us with the chest pain, suspecting that they are having a cardiac issue. And even the ECG showed that features like acute MI, but they also had COVID. Their swab came positive. Patients are presenting with neurological symptoms like stroke, palsies, facial palsies, weakness of lower limb, so a wide range of symptoms. And all of us know that 20 to 40% of patients can be asymptomatic.
Thank you. Thank you, Sister Beena. Yes, move on, Kritika.
Yeah. So do we doctors need to take continuous tablets, HCQ prophylaxis for those handling regular OPDs and IPD duties? If so, what are the doses? And because there seems to be asymptomatic positive cases.
Who will be able to handle this?
Father Matthew, I will just answer this. I'm a gynecologist. I'm a practicing gynecologist. So my physician has told me we have put all our employees on HCQ prophylaxis from the time we started our COVID ward work here. So the dose is 400 milligram BD on the first day and once a week for subsequent weeks. So after 2 months, when I inquired, he said, no, you have to continue till we have patients. This is exactly like how we take for when we travel to malaria endemic areas, how HCQ was given for malaria as malaria prophylaxis, exactly the same dose is given to us as a prophylaxis. I do not know how much it is going to prevent the disease, but I definitely know that it's going to, even if you get COVID-19, if you are on HCQ prophylaxis, your symptoms will be very mild symptom or mild to moderate symptoms. We too had few of our sisters and employees, but around 40 of them are infected in the course of this last 4 months, doctors, sisters, staff nurses, other employees, but none of them were, none of them had to go to ICU, or none of them were critical. That's my experience. And what our physicians say is that everyone should take until and unless till the last patient is there in the hospital, we will have to continue it. Just one tablet, 400 milligram tablet once a week.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sister Beena. I would recommend people to ask, see, many of your technical questions or clinical questions will be answered once you go through this course. And we will also have a lot of experts from CMC Vellore helping you in that. I would encourage people to ask questions related to this course. And maybe we'll stick to that because of lack of time. The next question is, in aspect of preparedness, is on triad centers, right? Does that make sense for you, sister, that fourth question?
I'm not an expert, but still from my experience, what I like to say is, I think every hospital, it's better to have a fewer clinics separated from other regular OPDs. Every patient entering the hospital should be checked by gun thermometer. The thermal screening should be done. In the casualty, if you have space, you should have two types of casualties, one for patients with COVID symptoms like fever or breathlessness, and other for non-COVID patients. But even then, you need to take adequate precautions in both the places.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, sister. Kritika, can you move on to,
Yeah.
can we look at questions related to the, once again, there is common COVID prescription being circulated for 3 different categories. I think do we need to take, so Sister Bina, you want to answer it quickly?
Father, the ICMR has given very, very clear guidelines on the treatment part of it. So we follow the ICMR guidelines for mild, moderate, and critical patients. So that is there in the website, in ICMR website, or if you do a Google search, you will get it.
Yeah, see, Dr. Pradeep and Arun mentioned that they will not be able to answer these technical questions, especially related to treatment. So all of these things will be handled once you attend this course. That's what I feel. But since people have asked these questions, maybe we can quickly go through that. Maybe Sister Bina, you need to take the questions also. People with oxygen.
Have very low saturation.
Will you be able to handle that?
This question is not very clear to me. People with oxygen support and people who have very low saturation levels. Is also overlapping with viral pneumonias. Any patient who has got chest infection with COVID-19, their oxygen saturation level is low. Besides antiviral drugs, we are also putting them on an antibiotic. Depends on the severity of the disease, but we do put them on antibiotic also.
Okay, I think there are, what about the next question? Preparedness?
On advising community on tests. Father, I'll answer this third question. As of today, the gold standard for the COVID testing is RT-PCR, that is polymerase chain reaction, which is the swab test what we are doing today. Also in hospitals like mine, we do a HRCT for any patient. Suppose a patient comes with acute MI and we need to take the patient for treatment. So we do and decide to which ICU patient should go, whether the patient should go to cardiac ICU or COVID ICU, we do a HRCT. If HRCT is showing any scores, then we send them to COVID ICU. Otherwise, if the HRCT is showing a clean picture, then we send them to the ICUs for exclusively for cardiac patient. About antibody kits, there are antibody kits available for IgG and IgM, and IgG is especially helpful if you want to know what is your status, whether you were you got already infection and whether you were asymptomatic in the past. So if you have a good IgG levels, that also is a indication that you can be a plasma donor. Antigen kits, regarding the rapid antigen kit, the sensitivity is very poor. 65% of time you can get a false negative test, but the specificity is excellent. So you can use in very, very patient who are coming with critical conditions. If it is positive, you know you are dealing with the positive patient and manage accordingly. But if it is negative, you need to do a COVID swab test, RT-PCR.
Thank you, Sister Bina. I think the rest of the questions, Pradeep, you may be able to answer. Can we use these modules later after reference? Can you take off from there?
Yes, I'll ask Mr. Arun to answer questions 4, 5, and 6. And
yeah, Arun, could you come into this?
Yes, yes, we are making the modules available after the course is available. So if once you registered for the course and you finish the course, you will continue to have access to the modules as reference. We don't have a facility to provide the modules via email. That's because of the way the interactivity, that I demonstrated. So it's fairly simple. It's just like logging into, email on your web browser and just connecting and clicking through the modules.
Yeah, see, basically, probably this person is asking whether it is available online. So
yes,
may not understand.
it is available online.
Yeah. So, like you check your email, you can check this, right? You can.
Yes.
You can look at it.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Correct. Can we get hard copy of the module? We don't have a hard copy because that interactivity that you saw, when you answer the questions and click through the images and videos, it's pretty hard to put it on a PDF or a printed format. And if we do so, even it's you lose a lot of the learning content over there. So we don't have that option at present.
Arun, can they take printouts of the PDF versions or those kind of things?
So I think Dr. Pradeep mentioned some items like checklists and so on. We are providing a PDF, but the online modules, if you try to print it, it's not really going to format very well because of the different sections that are there.
Yeah, but at least some of those things, if they want to print out and read, they can do that, right?
Yes, some of the checklists and so on, and some of those items they can keep a hard copy.
So
Some of the sisters probably they're thinking from the perspective of connectivity.
Correct, correct.
They are not able to connect what can be done.
Can I
Correct.
say something? So, like Arun was showing you, the modules are very interactive. They start off with what we call trigger questions to just spark an interest or to introduce a concept or to introduce the idea that is being developed in this module. Then there is interactive content. Some of them are all sorts of interactive materials have been used. Then there are videos. There are now in the middle of this, there may be some PDFs, like Sister Veena had mentioned, ICMR protocol. Some of these ICMR protocols are embedded into the Moodle page itself. So you could easily download these PDFs and print it if you want. But the modules themselves can't be easily printed or sent in email because of their interactive format in this way.
Thank you. I think I will take up that seventh question. Can we join? Of course, we can join. But I would, Pradeep and Arun, it may be easier for us to coordinate with our network. So maybe we need to work on a mechanism where you can facilitate these courses through CHAI.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and if we need to do follow up and all, it will be easier for us to do. Okay, so it could be the CHAI component. We can coordinate with our network.
Yeah.
And we also have the details of this. Those who, we have their contact details and all because they register for this webinar, so it's easier. How to segregating the disposing? Okay, that's more of a technical question. Sister Veena, maybe you should be able to comment.
Again, this is given by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, as well as the Central Pollution Control Board of India and the State Pollution Control Board. Basically, we need to put everything in yellow, red, and black, and it has to be incinerated. We have outsourced in the hospital, so we segregate and put it into yellow bags and send it for incineration. So a detail of how to collect it and how to segregate and how to dispose is given in the website, Central Pollution Control Board website.
Okay, thank you, sister. Can you send the links of online short courses given by, of course, this is part of the coordination. We will take care of that. We will say this webinar, the purpose of this webinar was that just to sensitize you that there is a course like this. Most of you should, all of you should join for this. You should encourage your team to join for this. So we will definitely have a plan to take this forward, and we will be in touch with you and take it forward. How to apply for the course? All that will be part of the follow-up. Pradeep, do you want to talk about it or leave it to us?
Yes, so I think as Father Matthew said, maybe initially you could get in touch with the CHAI Directorate and express your interest about whether you want to do the short course, or from your institution, would you like to nominate 2 or 3 or 4 people to be trainers and then enroll people to be the long course? So I think at your institution level, you decide whether you would like to do the short course or the advanced course, and get in touch with Father Matthew, and we will take it up from there.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe we can think of a short, brief expression of interest, getting some basic details, and then take it forward. Yes, we'll do that. We'll contact with you all. Yes. There was another question which was probably not compiled in the presentation. How much is the cost of this course? As much as I understand, it is free, right?
I'll ask Dr. Sitaraman to answer that.
Yes, sir. It's free. There is no cost for it.
So we don't have to pay for this course. Tata Trust is paying for us, right?
And we take this opportunity to request all the doctors and nurses from CHAI also to encourage other hospitals and doctors outside CHAI chain also, because we would like to reach out to as many potential
Sure.
trainees as possible, whether within
Yeah.
CHAI, within CMCO. We are not looking for what is the organization. We are looking for the number as many people as possible. So
Definitely.
please pass on this message to your networks, your other cohorts. That will be great.
Surely, we'll do that. Uh, Kritika, have you got some more questions?
Yes, sir. Can I read out those questions until we answer the poll questions?
Yeah, could you project that? It will be easier. Yeah, maybe we'll spend another 5 minutes answering questions.
Okay. So are there any CME credits received when we attend these courses?
CME credits.
Yeah.
Pradeep?
No, so far we have not got any CME credits for this course.
Okay. What are the other
We have
questions?
not even applied for it, is it, Dr. Pradeep?
Well, that will be helpful. Are you planning to apply for credits? It will be helpful for, it will be a motivation for more doctors to join. Yeah, you're on mute, Pradeep. You're on mute. Pradeep, we can't hear
Sorry,
you.
sorry, yeah. No, that's a good suggestion. I think we should try to get CME.
Yeah, that will motivate more doctors to join.
Our aim at this point was just to quickly get, build capacity across the country as fast as possible.
Good.
Now that the course is running, it's time to think about some of these other things as well.
Sure. So please take that suggestion back. Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
So the next questions are COVID related.
Yeah.
So how do you give HCQ in asymptomatic pregnant patients?
Sister Veena, quickly.
No. Asymptomatic patients, we are not giving HCQ now.
All right, move on.
How many deaths did you face? Have you faced any issue from the family of a person's death?
We have also around 4% of our patients we lost. Now, of course, the death rate is coming down. Surprisingly, we did not face any kind of agitation from the family members, because I think the word COVID itself, everyone coins it with death or some high fatality rate. But the process involved in handing over the dead body, especially when there is a suspicious case, we are awaiting, this is very, very long and tedious. So that way we had faced problem, but COVID death per se did not pose any problem to us.
Okay, move on to the next question, please.
What is the protocol for quarantining healthcare workers who have come in contact with COVID-19 positive patients?
Every state has got their own protocol. When we were at the peak, like when we had a lot of patients, we had some accidental exposure, some of our staff. At that time, what our ward officer, the local government, the officer said is just do a COVID test for the entire group who had come in contact with the positive case. And if it is negative, you don't quarantine them, take them back, because these were our ICU staff. So 15 of them we tested, they were all negative, and we took them back. I think each state has got different quarantine guidelines.
Okay, good. Thank you. Move on.
How to register for the course?
That we will get back to them, no problem. Okay. Next.
For those who are doing duty, how many days of quarantine? I guess the same question.
We had started, again, it is a state guideline. Kerala has got a different, this one, and most of our nurses were from Kerala, so we had a lot of resistance from them. Maharashtra said 6 hours of duty for 5 days and 2 days of off, and there is no special quarantine, no special public holiday, no casual leave. So it is just 5 days of work for 6 hours and 2 days off.
Okay.
For both doctors and nurses, but some of our doctors really did. They were doing 6 days and 1 day off. Some of them even did 10 days and 2 days off, like that.
So basically, it varies from state to state.
State, yes.
Okay, move on. What's the next one? How many more questions are there?
Yeah, we are done with the questions.
All right. Thank you. I think we should wind up. I'm glad that there were a lot of questions coming in, but definitely we will have more of this kind of discussions, and maybe some of these questions, these are all compiled. We can also get back to you with further answers.
And let me also just say that the people who join the courses, we at CMC, we conduct the distance education department is conducting a webinar once a month.
Yeah,
where,
and many of these questions will be answered there.
Will be answered in those webinars as well. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.